Welcome to the Last Economy Podcast, a guide to the age of intelligent economics. Today, we are opening the book right at the start, diving into the introduction. It's got this really dramatic title, The 1,000-Day Window.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't ease you in, does it?
Not at all. The author kicks things off immediately. This whole introduction feels like a massive alarm bell, really. It's setting the stage for, well, maybe the biggest economic shift any of us will ever see.
Right. And the core mission here today is to get straight to the stakes. Why is this happening now? Why can't our current system handle this explosion of intelligence?
And what does this 1,000-day window actually mean for you, the listener? Because the book makes it personal right away.
It does. It frames this not as some abstract future problem, but as something hitting us right now. The author grounds it in this really stark claim about becoming obsolete.
Okay, we have to start there because, like you said, there's no cushioning the blow. Let me read this line directly from the introduction. It's pretty jarring. Your economic life expectancy is shrinking. Not your career, not your current job. Your entire economic relevance as a human being.
Oof.
I mean, that's staggering, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we talk about economic relevance, what's really being said here, is it just a fancy way of saying jobs are changing? Or is it deeper, like about the actual value of human thinking?
Oh, it's absolutely deeper, much deeper. The argument in the book is that the very thing we've been trading on really since the Industrial Revolutions kicked into high gear, human thought, creativity, analysis, all that white-collar expertise, that's what's about to become, well, almost worthless. On the open market anyway.
It's not just that tasks are automated.
No, it's more fundamental. It's like the core function of your mind, economically speaking, is being replicated by machines that can run almost for free once they're built. Think about it like this. If a factory puts in robots, okay, maybe the assembly line worker learns to manage the robots or moves into design or something requiring human ingenuity. There's a pivot.
Yeah.
But what happens when AI starts doing the lawyer's research, or the graphic designer's concepts, or the coder's routine scripts, or even the doctor's diagnosis? Where does the human pivot to when the core cognitive skill itself is replicated?
There's no higher ground left in that economic sense.
Exactly, that unique value the human mind provided. It starts to disappear from the market calculation. That's what shrinking economic life expectancy means in this context. The period where being a thinking human has inherent market value is getting shorter. Fast.
And the person guiding us through this, the author, they have this really unusual perspective, don't they? They've kind of seen it from both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes their viewpoint so compelling, I think. The book makes it clear their background gives them this credibility. They spent years as a macro hedge fund manager.
So looking for cracks in the system.
Precisely. Not just placing bets, but deeply analyzing global finance, looking for the weak points, the structural flaws. Basically understanding how the old system could break. They saw the fragility firsthand.
Okay.
But then they pivoted. They founded Stability AI.
Wow. Okay. So went from analyzing the old system to literally building the engine of the new one.
Exactly. Directly involved in developing and pushing out open source generative AI. They were in the rooms where people were grappling with the implications, the math behind this potential mass obsolescence, driven not by malice maybe, but just by pure optimization.
So it's like getting a diagnosis from the person who knows all the system's prior conditions, and also getting the blueprint from the architect designing the replacement building.
You got it. It's a powerful combination, a very potent lens for looking at what's coming.
Okay, so our mission today is clear. Use that unique lens to unpack this whole phase transition thing, why our current economic setup, based on scarcity, just can't cope. And crucially, what paths are actually open to us in this very short window. Right, let's get into the core paradox the introduction lays out. The author calls it a cosmic joke, which, well, it sets a certain tone.
It does. It's trying to capture the sheer absurdity of the situation.
And this is where the abundance trap idea comes in. It seems absolutely central to the whole argument of the book. It's supposed to explain why things can look great on paper.
Stock market highs, GDP growth.
Exactly. But reality feels, well, broken for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Let me read the key quote defining this trap. I call it the abundance trap. We are about to achieve post-scarcity in the realm of intelligence, and our scarcity-based economic system is going to process this abundance as poverty.
Yeah. Just let that sink in for a moment.
It sounds completely backward. Abundance. I mean, isn't that the goal? Shouldn't having more intelligence available lead to more prosperity, more free time, better lives? Why does the book say it leads to poverty?
Because our entire economic system, the way we measure value, GDP, prices, wages, everything, it's fundamentally built on one thing: scarcity.
Things having value because they're limited.
Exactly. Value in our current system comes from something being rare or rivalrous.
Hmm.
If I have an apple and I give it to you, I don't have it anymore. That limitation, that rivalry, is what gives it a market price.
Okay, standard economics.
Right. But now apply that logic to digital intelligence. Think about knowledge work, software code, designs, strategic analysis, even creative writing or images generated by AI.
It's stuff that can be copied infinitely.
Precisely. It's becoming non-rivalrous and infinitely reproducible at near zero marginal cost. So what happens when the supply of something really useful, like high-quality intelligence, becomes effectively infinite?
According to those economic laws, its price should drop towards zero.
Bingo. And that's the trap. Our system sees this incredible explosion of productive capacity, a stunning technological achievement. And it doesn't register it as a massive win for humanity. It registers it as a collapse in economic value because the price signal tanks.
So the system is blind. It measures the falling dollar value of the human labor being replaced, but it can't see the massive increase in the actual usefulness of what's being created.
That's it, exactly. And we're seeing this play out already, right? Think about freelance work like copywriting or basic coding.
Yeah.
A few years ago, if you were a decent human copywriter, you could charge a solid rate because that skill had a certain scarcity. Today, the need for copy hasn't gone down. Maybe it's even gone up. But the market rate for a human doing entry-level versions of that task is plummeting.
Because AI can churn out decent enough versions almost instantly.
Right. The output is abundant, even if the human writer is still, a scarce human. The system processes the abundance of output as a devaluation of the human input.
And the book uses this analogy of two dashboards to really drive the point home. It shows how disconnected our official metrics are from lived reality.
Yeah, this is a really effective illustration of the paradox. Okay, dashboard 1, that's the official story, the one you hear on the financial news.
Right. What was it that show?
Stock market. Often at all-time highs, yeah. GDP growth looks okay, maybe even good depending on the quarter. Unemployment figures might be historically low.
So, conclusion from dashboard 1.
Yeah.
Everything's booming. We've never been richer.
Exactly. Purely on paper, it looks like prosperity. But then you switch to dashboard 2. The book calls this the measure of human reality.
And what does that dashboard show?
It's a completely different picture. You see things like life satisfaction surveys, hitting record lows in many places.
Oh.
You see these devastating deaths of despair, suicides, drug overdoses, alcohol-related deaths climbing to epidemic levels. You see whole generations struggling with debt, unable to buy homes, start families. The basic markers of economic stability feel out of reach for so many.
So dashboard 2 says, things are actually pretty bleak. People are struggling.
Yeah. The author sums it up starkly. We're somehow richer on paper and poorer in spirit. The very efficiency being optimized into the system seems to be creating this deep human unease, this malaise.
It feels like a crisis of meaning almost, not just money. If the economic engine is supposedly running so well, why does the human experience inside that engine feel so broken? I like the analogy the book uses here, comparing the economy to a patient.
Oh yeah, the fever chart one?
Right. If you only look at the patient's temperature chart that's like GDP, maybe it looks stable, even improving. The doctor might say, looks good. But if you actually look inside, maybe the patient's vital organs are failing. The traditional charts, the old metrics, they're telling us the machine is running fine. But the human inside the machine is in deep distress.
And that's the fundamental indictment here. Our main metric, GDP, was designed for a different era, an industrial era. It measures activity, consumption, throughput of scarce resources.
Likes it when we build things, use things up.
Yeah. It even goes up when we have to clean up disasters like oil spills or hurricanes because that's economic activity. But it was never designed to measure the value of abundant, free information or things like human well-being, purpose, or connection.
So it actively punishes the creation of this new kind of abundance. Because free stuff doesn't have a market price, it makes GDP look worse.
Exactly. The technology isn't the failure here. The failure is the economic operating system. It's misaligned with the reality of digital abundance. And that misalignment, that disconnect between the dashboards, the book calls it the first siren of a collapsing paradigm. Our greatest success creating near-infinite intelligence is being treated by our system as a catastrophic failure.
Okay, so the system's broken. But why the urgency? Why this specific 1,000-day window? To get that, the book takes us back in history, right?
Yeah.
To the last big information revolution.
Yeah, the printing press, and specifically the story of Johannes Trithemius.
Tell us about him. Why is his story relevant now?
So, Trithemius was this abbot in Germany back in 1492. His monastery, Sponheim, was famous for its scriptorium. Its main source of income was monks painstakingly copying manuscripts by hand. Valuable work, took ages.
Okay, makes sense.
Then along comes Gutenberg's printing press. Suddenly, books can be reproduced quickly and cheaply. Trithemius sees this and he freaks out.
Understandably, from his perspective.
Right, so he writes this whole treatise in praise of scribes. He argues that handwritten books are morally superior, that the act of copying connects the monks to God, that printed books are somehow debased.
He wrapped it up in philosophy and theology.
Exactly. But underneath it all, what was he really defending?
His monastery's income stream, his economic model.
Precisely. He was defending the economic value of scarcity in manuscript production. And how did that turn out for him?
Not well, I'm guessing.
Within 50 years, maybe less, scriptoriums like his were basically obsolete. Museums. The economic function of the highly skilled scribe, which had existed for centuries, just vanished, wiped out by a more efficient technology for replicating information.
Okay, the parallel is becoming clear. And this is where the book turns the mirror directly on us, on the modern knowledge worker. Let me read that bit again. You are Trithemius. Your job is hand copying manuscripts. The AI is the printing press. But unlike him, you do not have 50 years. The window for meaningful choice is much shorter.
Yeah, that hits hard.
It does. So the core question is, why? Why is this transition so much faster? What makes AI different from the printing press in terms of speed and impact?
This is maybe the single most critical distinction the book makes. It comes down to what is being replaced. Gutenberg's press replaced the physical act of copying. It automated the scribe's hand.
Okay.
This meant the human could adapt. The former scribe didn't just become unemployed, they could pivot up the value chain. They could become an editor, a publisher, a typesetter, a writer, focusing on the cognitive work the machine couldn't do, the thinking, the structuring, the creating.
Right, the machine handled the labor, the human handled the thought.
Exactly. But AI is fundamentally different. It's not just replacing the hand, it's replacing the mind itself. It's replacing or replicating the ability to see patterns, to synthesize information, to write code, to generate creative options, to reason through problems. When the physical task is automated, you pivot to the mental task. But what happens when the mental task itself is automated?
Where do you pivot then?
Yeah.
Within the old economic framework,
Yeah.
there's nowhere left to go up.
That's the terrifying logic. There's no obvious higher value cognitive ground left to occupy within the traditional economic structure that values human thought for its scarcity. That's why this transition is exponential, not linear like past industrial revolutions.
Those shifts from farming to factories, from factories to offices, they took generations, right?
Yeah,
People had time to adapt. Education systems changed.
exactly. Decades, even centuries. This intelligence inversion. The book argues it's happening on the timescale of single digital years. Moore's law applied to cognition, almost.
Which brings us back to that opening line. Your economic life expectancy is shrinking. It's the market value of your thinking that's collapsing.
Yes, the economic relevance of unaided human cognition is facing rapid devaluation.
Okay, so let's nail down this 1,000-day window idea more precisely. It's not predicting a specific date for the end of the world, right?
No, definitely not. It's not a doomsday clock in that sense. The book presents it as an estimate of the historical period, roughly 3 years from when the book was likely conceived or written, during which the socioeconomic phase transition becomes irreversible.
Okay, irreversible, like boiling water.
That's the analogy you used, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about heating water. Up until it hits 100 degrees Celsius, you can turn the heat down, maybe add cold water and stop it from boiling. You still have meaningful control.
Right.
But once it hits that boiling point, it becomes steam. The phase transition happens. It doesn't matter if you slightly tweak the heat after that point. It's steam now. The change is locked in.
So the 1,000-day window is the time before the water boils.
Yeah.
The time we still have meaningful leverage to choose the outcome.
Exactly. It's the deadline for meaningful choice about the structure of the next system. After this window closes, the fundamental dynamics might be locked in, and we just live with the consequences.
And the book argues we're heading towards a specific kind of singularity, but maybe not the one people usually talk about.
Right. Most people think of the technological singularity, the hypothetical point where AI becomes superintelligent, vastly surpassing humans. The book argues something else arrives first. A socioeconomic singularity,
Meaning,
meaning our systems of money, work, value, and maybe even social meaning break down long before we get to some godlike AI. They shatter under the sheer pressure of this near infinite productivity and the collapse of scarcity-based value. The system just can't function anymore in its current form. That breakdown, that shattering of the socioeconomic structure, that's what's happening within this 1,000-day time frame.
so if we miss the window, the system finds a new equilibrium, but it might be one we didn't choose and don't like. The physics of the situation just takes over.
That's the core warning. The underlying forces, capital concentration, network effects, optimization algorithms will find a stable state. Our choice is whether we consciously design that state or just let it happen by default.
Okay, so if the old system is failing and the transition becomes irreversible soon, what are the possible outcomes?
Yeah.
The book argues there are really only three stable configurations for the next era.
Yeah, it uses this analogy of electron orbitals. Like, these are the only energy levels where the system can settle down stably. Anything else is just a temporary, unstable transition state. We get to choose, potentially, but the options are limited by the underlying physics, so to speak.
Got it. Let's look at them. Future one is called digital feudalism, and it's described as the default path.
Yes, the path of least resistance. This is what happens if we basically do nothing, if we just let current trends play out.
And how does that work? What's the mechanism?
The key is control over the core AI infrastructure.
Yeah.
Building and running these massive frontier AI models takes enormous resources, computing power, vast data sets, specialized talent.
Which means only huge corporations or maybe governments can really do it.
Exactly. So inevitably, a handful of giant tech corporations end up controlling the means of cognitive production, as the book puts it. These become the new centers of power, the digital duchies.
Okay, so a few entities control the core intelligence. What does that mean for everyone else?
For most people, the outcome is likely some form of universal basic income, or UBI. Enough money to survive, to consume digital goods and services provided by the AI platforms, enough to keep society stable, perhaps, but crucially, not enough to truly matter. Not enough to have real agency, to be creators, innovators, or active citizens in the way we understand it now. People become users, consumers, effectively data points within the systems controlled by these digital lords.
The book uses the image of an optimized cage.
Oh.
It sounds subtly controlling. Not necessarily jackboots and oppression, but something else.
Right, it wouldn't necessarily feel like tyranny day to day. It could
Yeah.
be incredibly convenient. Imagine. AI anticipates your needs, manages your schedule, delivers perfectly personalized news and entertainment, optimizes your health. Everything is smooth, frictionless.
So the convenience itself becomes the control mechanism.
That's the argument. The seamless, personalized environment, mediated entirely by proprietary AI, removes the incentive or even the ability to question the system, to push back, or to create something outside of it. You're comfortable, you're provided for, but you're fundamentally passive. You're a consumer in a perfectly managed environment, not an active participant in shaping the world. That comfort ensures stability for the feudal structure.
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah,
Because it requires zero active effort from us to end up there. It's the default setting.
precisely.
Okay, then future two, the great fragmentation. This sounds like the opposite reaction.
It is. It's described as the fear response. It's what happens when nations look at the potential power of AI. Whoever gets true artificial general intelligence first basically wins everything, economically and militarily, and they panic.
So instead of global platforms, everyone retreats.
Exactly. Nations try to hoard their data, build their own sovereign AIs, put up digital walls. They see global AI platforms not as tools for connection, but as potential vectors for foreign influence or attack. Data localization laws, national AI strategies aimed at dominance rather than cooperation.
It's a new kind of Cold War.
That's the framing. A digital Cold War fought with algorithms, cyber warfare, and control over information flows instead of nuclear bombs. Each nation or bloc tries to secure its own digital territory.
And the book says this is already beginning. We can see signs of this now.
Absolutely. Look at the US-China tech tensions, the EU's focus on digital sovereignty, India's data localization efforts. These are all early signs of that fragmentation impulse kicking in.
What makes this future stable in its own dysfunctional way?
Mutual suspicion and fear. It creates a kind of negative equilibrium. Everyone's guarding their own patch, which prevents the kind of global cooperation needed to tackle shared global problems like climate change, pandemics, or even managing the risks of AI itself. It leads to duplicated effort, wasted resources, and constant low-level conflict. It's stable because the fear reinforces the isolationist behavior.
Okay, so digital feudalism by default, great fragmentation by fear. That leaves future three, human symbiosis. This is presented as the desirable path, but also the hardest one.
It's definitely the hardest because it requires conscious effort, deliberate design. It's not something we'll just stumble into.
What does human symbiosis actually look like?
It means actively building economic and social systems where AI doesn't replace human value, but amplifies human purpose and creativity, where the goal isn't just automated efficiency, but enhanced human flourishing.
So abundance isn't a problem to be managed, it's the goal.
Exactly. Abundance becomes a feature, not a bug. And critically, intelligence itself, the outputs of these powerful AI systems, is treated more like a public utility or a commons, accessible to everyone to build upon, rather than a proprietary commodity hoarded by a few.
How do we even begin to build that? It sounds like it requires rethinking value itself.
It absolutely does. It means breaking free from that scarcity mindset that's dominated economics forever. We'd need new ways to measure and reward contributions that aren't just tied to scarce labor or capital. Maybe value comes from creativity, community building, care, exploration things AI might assist, but not fully replace in terms of human meaning.
And this is where the book positions itself not just as a warning, but as a potential guide. It talks about being an engineering manual.
Yes, it claims to offer a blueprint for building this future three. And that blueprint is based on a new framework the author calls intelligence theory.
Okay, what is intelligence theory? Is it like a new economics?
Sort of. Think of it like this. If classical economics was about the physics of Adam's land, labor, physical capital intelligence theory is trying to be the physics of bits.
The physics of information and knowledge.
Yeah. How does information flow? How is value actually created when intelligence is abundant? How do you align distributed digital intelligence with human goals rather than just letting optimization algorithms run wild towards purely inhuman ends? It's presented as the foundational science needed to design systems where AI serves us, makes us more human, more capable, rather than making us irrelevant.
So it's the toolkit we need to consciously choose and build future three.
That's the premise. It's the theoretical underpinning for designing those symbiotic systems where human purpose is amplified, not sidelined.
So the message is, the train is leaving the station, the track head will lock into one of these configurations, but we still have this brief window, these 1,000 days perhaps, to try and actively lay the track towards human symbiosis using these new principles.
That's the essence of the introduction's call to action. The transition is coming, fast, and irreversibly. The default leads somewhere potentially bleak. The fear reaction leads somewhere dangerous. The only path to a future where humans still thrive as humans requires deliberate, difficult, conscious construction, starting now. Hashtag outro. Okay, so if we had to boil down this entire introduction, its core message, into one single sentence, what would it be? I think it's something like this. The intelligence inversion is shattering the foundation of scarcity-based economics, forcing us in this narrow window to choose between the optimized stability of a digital cage, the volatility of a fragmented collapse, or the conscious design of a symbiotic future.
That captures the stakes really well. We covered a lot of ground just in this intro chapter. Let's quickly recap the absolute key takeaways you need to remember. First, that 1,000-day window. Remember, it's not a specific doomsday date, but the estimated critical period for meaningful choice. It's the time before the socioeconomic phase transition becomes irreversible, like water hitting boiling point. The deadline for shaping the next system. Second, the abundance trap. This is the core paradox. Our current economic system, built on scarcity, interprets the coming abundance of digital intelligence not as prosperity, but as poverty and systemic collapse. It literally can't value abundance correctly. Third, the Trithemius analogy, but with a crucial difference. AI isn't just replacing the hand like the printing press did, it's replacing the mind. That makes this shift exponentially faster and more fundamental than anything before. There's no easy pivot up the cognitive ladder this time within the old rules. And finally, the three futures. Remember, digital feudalism is the default that happens if we do nothing. Avoiding it, and avoiding the fearful great fragmentation, requires actively building the systems for a human symbiosis, likely using new ideas like the intelligence theory the book proposes.
And that brings us to the final, really provocative thought the introduction leaves us with. It takes that old Keynesian quip, in the long run, we're all dead, and flips it completely on its head for our time.
What's the new version?
The book argues the real issue now is, in the long run, we're all alive, but economically irrelevant, unless we build an economy where relevance is not economic.
Wow. So the challenge isn't just surviving, it's figuring out how to matter, how to have purpose in a world where our economic function might evaporate.
Yeah.
That's quite the challenge to leave us with.
It is. It sets the stage perfectly for what comes next.
Exactly. And that's what we'll pick up next time. We're diving into Chapter 1, properly titled The Intelligence Inversion. The book promises to really break down the historical shifts in what society values economically, moving from land to labor to capital, and now this final shift to intelligence. And it aims to explain why this last inversion is unique, why it offers, quote, no retreat. So definitely be ready for that deep dive.